Welcome to the Voodoo Power Podcast.
Welcome to Plates and Pancakes. We're sitting down today with Jacob Weeks. Jacob graduated from Adrian in 2017. He went to the University of Central Missouri. He studied social studies education with a minor in history. He started teaching math in the spring of 2021 and became the assistant baseball coach. He moved to teaching social studies and became an assistant coach for football, while also taking over the baseball program in 2022. So thanks for coming in, Jacob.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What you've been doing with all these kids, it's worked wonders. Okay, the kids are bought in. You've had more and more people coming out here. They've invested. They're out here weekly all the time, and I've definitely seen them like improving a lot. And like some of them, like their strength has gone up so much. Like Cooper Wimsett, he's one of them. Like every time I see him, like Jesus, he's getting a lot bigger. So. But every single one, like I see some of their legs, I'm like, gosh, dang. I was like, that's really going to help out next year because I know all they have in their mind is just from the East Butt game last year and just how that was. And that's not what we want to experience again. And we need more people to get better. And they're all bought into that and they all want to work harder so we can get to that ring, that state championship. So.
I hope so. I hope it's carrying over. I got some changes I want to make through the summer. So hopefully you see a stronger, faster kid than even what you saw last year. That's the goal. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
Now, taking over the program, you took it over in a weird spot. You were set up to be the assistant coach. Boom, some stuff happened. And all of a sudden, here's the program. Let's see what you can do with it.
Yeah.
How was that first year in preparing to take over a team on the fly?
It was sort of a mess. I'm going to be completely honest with it. Like all the stuff like that we were going to do, like I had no idea. I just used all the stuff that I did in the past. I mean, of course, I was researching all the time. I was like, what's the best stuff to do? Like I had to figure out like a whole new way of doing in and out and stuff because I couldn't even remember like all the stuff I did with Coach Nolan. I made sure to like implement that as well because it's a lot of stuff that's been working throughout the years. So I want to make sure that it's a firm establishment to make sure that we're still continuing to do that. And I mean, the only thing I asked for most time was, or all the time, was just hard work and effort. Okay, if you're doing those two things, you're going to get so much more out of it, and you're going to see changes in the game, and people are going to excel a lot more. And I mean, I just had to learn all the time. Like your brother came in, he helped out a lot, and continues to do the same thing all the time. I always hear from him. It's good having an older person for them to respect just a little bit more because, of course, I'm only 24 years old. At the time, I was 23. So they're like, does this guy really know what he's doing? So, like, I was constantly fighting with some of the older guys. Like, this guy has no idea what he's doing. And I wish I could have made changes now looking back at it, like putting more of them in their place, like kicking them out if they're being just turds. So there's just a lot of learning. I learned from what I did last year into this year, and we've already won more games than last year, so that's helped out a lot. And the one thing I saw the most was we didn't play enough games at all. We played 16 games total, including our one game in districts. I mean, we've already played 19 this year. So we had a lot of guys that we could never tell how many, like our arms, because they only got so many innings. So I was like, we need to see more arms. We need to be pitching a lot more so we can see how well we actually are. So like over the weekend, we saw how we were and didn't help out so much. But then again, we're trying to win a conference championship on Tuesday. So, I mean, that's why some of the scores don't reflect what we actually are.
That's what I would say about baseball. Like I had daughters, softball players. Baseball didn't come into our life until I started working with some baseball players out here. So understanding that it's very hard to look at a baseball team's record and have that reflect the true capability of the team because you're managing arms all the time. You got to decide what game isn't as a must win and then what game you have a little bit of allowance on. How do you guys sit down and figure that out? You look at the calendar, you look at what has to do with conference, you look at what has to do with districts. How does that shake out?
We first look at just who's in our district because we're trying to win a state championship all the time. That's our main goal. It's every team's main goal. If that's not your main goal, you probably shouldn't be in that profession at all. So we're trying to win our district first. So we look at our district opponents and we say, hey, when are they on our calendar? We want to focus on that game. And if they're a well-coached team. They're a good team. Maybe we're not going to show them our best arm at that time. I mean, when we played Butler, we want to beat them. That's a rivalry game. Of course, we're going to throw our best at them. Let's say we have Warsaw coming up before our districts. I mean, we're not going to throw any of our big guys because we don't want them to actually see that. Because you see one guy one time, I mean, you're going to learn from it the previous time, and you're going to make adjustments. You're going to do so much better. Because I remember when I was a freshman in high school, we played Archie, and they were a pretty dang good baseball team. I think they made it to the Final Four that year. But we pitched one of our seniors the first time against them, and they hit the absolute crap out of him. And then, I don't know why, but we also pitched them again, and they scored even more runs that next time against them. I was like, why are we still showing them the same exact arm? But then again, that's a conference game. We're trying to win it, so it goes right into conference. Those are must wins because we also want to have a conference championship. So, like, we have Lakeland on Tuesday. That's a must win, so we can have a share of the district championship. So we just have to analyze who's our district and then our conference, and then from there on, we want to see who can throw, who's our competition. If it's a good team, they have a good pitcher as well that they're going to be throwing at us, we want to throw a better arm at them so we can try to win that as well. But we have the must wins that we want to focus on the most, and then we'll pitch around some other teams as well.
All right, so let's move off baseball a little bit, and then we'll get back to it. But what made you decide you wanted to be a teacher? Out of all the professions and all the opportunities probably that you had at the time, you decided, hey, I want to come back and be a teacher.
So when I was in school, I tore my ACL, my meniscus, my freshman year before football season. And just the road to recovery for that, like I was constantly in the physical therapy room. I was constantly doing all kinds of stuff and all focused on getting back and being ready for baseball that upcoming season as well, because that was my favorite game at the time because I missed all football. Football was my thing. But I was trying to get to that. So I saw how much work and effort the physical therapist put into it and how much they were involved with me. And that was something I really wanted to do, was work with young athletes and try to help them out the best way possible. So I originally wanted to go into physical therapy. And then I took chemistry and biology in high school, and I absolutely hated it. I was like, this is way too much numbers, too much figuring out formulas and stuff. I was like, no way I'm going to be able to do this for another. It was supposed to be 6 years at the time. That's what one physical therapist told me. It was 6 years of college. And then I think as the transitioning went on, I had to go back to physical therapy again for my knee again. And he said that they moved it up to you have to have a doctorate now too. I was like, 8 years more of school and more chemistry and all that. I was like, no way I can do that. So then it gets to about, I think it was junior or senior year, I'm in a sports management class, and the class was a lot of fun. I want to be involved in sports somehow. So I saw that, and I wanted to be able to work in a sports environment, work with the Royals, work with the Chiefs, work for a big organization of some sort. And then we get to about the end of the year, and our teacher says, oh yeah, you also need to read this. And it says like less than like 0.5% of people that go into the profession actually work for like a big organization and stuff, unless you know people. I was like, well, I'm from Adrian, Missouri, so I don't have that many connections. My parents don't really have that many connections, so probably not going to be the best thing for me. And then just throughout playing 3 different sports, just coaches, I was always constantly helping out the younger guys and like coaching them, because you want to be able to have guys coach one another. It shouldn't just be all put on the coach. You want to help make sure the older guys are helping the younger guys. And I was put into that position in every single sport. And I was like, man, this would be a really good profession. And like my mom's a teacher as well. I mean, the people I respect more than anybody else are my teachers that I had. So like Coach Nolan, Coach Davis, they were ones I respected a lot. They helped me out in the classroom. They helped me in the field. So I saw how much they put into it, how much they love the game. I was like, I definitely could do that too. It would be something that makes me happy. So that's why I did that.
And then coming back to Adrian, you kind of touched on it there when you were talking about taking over the baseball team. Coming back to Adrian when you did, well, some of those kids you went to school with.
Yeah.
So setting boundaries, creating a situation where now you're in charge, how difficult was that to navigate as a young guy?
It's hard because I knew every single kid. I think I might not have known like 2 or 3 kids. Like I knew either their siblings or I played with their siblings. I knew them. I knew their mom or dad. I knew something. So that's a little rough, especially like teaching in the classroom too. They're like, well, I know where you live. And they always say that. Or like, I know who your mom is. I'm like, well, I know who yours is too. And it's just, we try to have respect with one another. And I don't try to put that on any of them. Like, hey, I know your mom. I know your dad. I know this and that. But Adrian is just a great place because I think we have the best kids. Most of them, I'd say 95% of them are respectful. They are raised right. They know what makes stuff work. And like overall, the kids are great. I mean, now these days we have more people that are moving in. The town's growing. So you're getting more of the kids that you're like, why are you even here? So I think we have pretty good parents. I think we need a little bit more discipline, especially at school and more importantly at home, even though it's a broader topic that I'm not going to get that into, but parents need to be more disciplined on their kids, and discipline's a huge thing. And I try to be as disciplined as possible and just set higher expectations for them so like they actually give more of a crap when it comes to playing the game, and especially in the classroom, because I tell them, you're student athletes. Not any of you guys are LeBron James or anything like that. You're not going out there and you're going to just be a world beater. I mean, you have to understand this is a future for you. You need to understand that. Like, this comes second. However, I want to make this as fun as possible for every single one of them.
Yeah, more than likely, this is the end of the road for a lot of them, and they're going to have to fall back on their education or whatever that may be. So, yes, making sports as fun as possible is going to be what helps create a better culture, because they can go back and say, hey, you know, he knew I was not going to play college ball, but I still got the attention. I still got the help. I still got what I needed to have a wonderful high school career. Now we're going back into baseball just a little bit. You'd mentioned it earlier. So you took over the program. You worked with Coach Nolan, and then all of a sudden, with everything that happened, now you take over. Now they throw Kenny in your lap. So you get a totally different setup. He was a comp ball coach. That's where all of his experience comes from. Did that change the way you saw the game from previous, or how did that affect how you manage a baseball team?
I mean, I started working more with the infield. Like, big thing I thought I did well at in baseball was fielding. So we try to make that a big priority, even though like we've had a lot of kids, they're either getting scared of the ball or something like that. I mean, we had a rough stretch of games where we were just having error after error after error. And of course, I'm looking at coach. I'm like, what are we doing wrong? And like, we just had some position changes that we had to make. And with those position changes, this helped out a lot. I mean, he's seen a lot of baseball. He's probably seen a lot more baseball than I have. Like, I know I played a lot, but he's definitely seen a lot. He's been on the coaching aspect of it. So like having him there, seeing stuff that I might not see, helps out a lot. Because only having 2 guys, like if it's just me out there, I'm not going to be able to see everything. Having him with all that experience, he's going to know a little bit more, because he had of course, you know, Trevor, your nephew. I mean, Trevor was a great kid. He knew all the fundamentals, and I know he definitely got that from his dad. And I know that he has high expectations for everybody. And I know he's not the loudest by any means, but he knows how to get the job done and make sure kids are fundamentally sound.
You know, when I was coaching with him, we coached a lot of softball together. It used to be a running joke that if you could hear him talk, he was yelling. Mm-hmm. So you once you understand that, hey, if I can hear him, he's probably a little upset. It's a weird deal, but he watches a lot of ball, and yeah, I think he wants the best for every kid out there.
Yeah, and I told them all right at the beginning of this last year and this year too. I was like, I understand. I was like, he's got a daughter that's playing softball right now, and he's missing all those games to be out here with you guys. So take it with a grain of salt that he wants to be here with you guys, make you guys better. And like most of the kids heard that, and they understood that, and they knew that he was there for the right reasons.
Now, we talked about the gym just a little bit. So I have a few baseball boys that come in, getting them ready for the season. They had some expectations of previous experiences, and they started practice this year, and it was different. They really came in a lot different. So what changes did you make that the players noticed and really gravitated towards?
One was just being prepared overall, because like years past, we used to just do lifting and that was it. I want to make sure that they were hitting, getting some fielding in. Like we had a lot of nice days in January. It was 60-degree days. We were going outside, we were fielding. And like after we got done, I told all the kids after that first day, I was like, guys, I think we could go start right now and we could win a couple games. Like we didn't even have everybody there, but our fielding like pretty dang good that first day. But just making sure that they're well prepared, because you want to be, every team wants to be prepared. I mean, by just being ready to go. Also in the weight room as well, trying to get stronger, faster. Like that was my big key thing, was making sure we're faster, because I know a lot of them talk to me about what you talk to them about out here, and just being faster. Like you're talking about your, like the amount of weight it takes into with the number of steps and how much pressure goes into it. Like if you're running miles and miles and miles, it's not, you're going to get tired and tired and tired. You're going to lose a bunch of those, like those fast twitch fibers, which you need a lot of to swing a bat, throw a pitch, throw it across the diamond. You need that. That first step's very important. I tell them all that, especially when you're fielding, when you're on base, that step is going to be the most important part of your game. So, like, I've just changed, just working on the speed, working on, like, talk about doing a bunch of plyometrics. I made sure that we were doing that at least once a week in the weight room. And especially during practice as well. Like, we don't run any more than just 90 feet at all. We did one time last week because we got in trouble at school, so we ran a little bit more. But just working on a bunch of sprints, working on just bound jumps, working on explosion. And I think we've definitely gotten a lot faster, especially on the base pass. And like we are sprinting out of the box and we are hauling butt to first base. So I'm making sure that they understand hustle and energy. We're getting to the base. And if you hit the ball right to someone, you never know, you might get on if you hustle. Because every time you watch any of the baseball games anymore, like the Royals, like you'll see Salvador Perez hit one, he'll jog first base or something like that. Like I understand to an extent, but I want those guys who are going to sprint their butt off every single time and hustle all the way down. Because I got onto one of them for just walking a second base on a walk. I was like, I'm not having that. Hustle your butt, get there, jog a little bit. I don't want to see any of the walking and stuff. So I tell them all, it's like, we need to get on base. We need to steal bases. It's going to be the best for us. We need a lot of energy. I mean, getting a stolen base, stealing home, that's going to get more people fired up, which we lack a lot of, is having energy on the bench and cheering on teammates. It's one thing that we lack a lot of, that I try to help out as much as possible with, but I think it's just a lost thing these days.
It may be a little different. And then you may be taking a culture from somewhere it was before and taking a new direction. It may just take time. You may, in 3 years, you may see that it's working or whatever, and you may be getting what you want then. But going back to, you said you got had some kids get in trouble in school and had to run a little bit. I got asked to ask you about the times. I heard you timed them on a triangle, and the speed was way more quick than what you thought.
Our timing, whenever I was in school, like we'd get timed, and you'd have to get underneath like 115 or something like that. So that was our first time running it all year, and like our fastest time was like 53 seconds. So it's like, I think it's 367 meters around the field. So I mean, that's pretty dang fast, being on grass, being on dirt, being on those shoes. I'm like, you guys are flying. Like every single, we had I think 5 guys underneath a minute, and like every single person was underneath a minute 15. That was our first time running it all year. And I told them, hey, you got to beat 130, because we never ran it all, and they beat it easily by 15 seconds. So I was like, man, we are getting a lot faster. So that was good to see. And like all of them were like, they were pretty shocked. I was like, holy crap. I was like, we never ran that fast. Like maybe some of us, but not everybody consistently running that fast. So we have a lot of kids that have definitely been getting a lot faster. And
you have quite a bit of speed through the team. How's that helped on the base pass?
Just aggressiveness on the base pass. I've been too aggressive on the base pass, which sometimes it can hurt you as a team, because that's an automatic out. They just give away to them. Like we want to move on the base as much as possible, get those free passes. But sometimes I feel like I'm getting too anxious. Like at first pitch, we're going right away. Like if I get one of our quicker guys up on first base. I want them to get to second as fast as possible. But sometimes I need to wait for an off-speed pitch, understand when that's going to come, because it's not going to happen on that first pitch. The kid can get it home. You got a good catcher's got a good arm. I mean, they're usually going to get you about 8 times out of 10. But I try to risk as much as possible because I know that we can get there in that amount of time. It just depends on our jump. So we work on the speed school all the time, seeing the foot and reacting and going. And sometimes we get good jumps. Sometimes the catcher's just got a freaking cannon of an arm. You can't do anything about it. Had one of our medium pace guys against Skyline, and it's early in the game. I'm seeing if he can get there on a fake bunt steal, and he got canned. And I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm looking like a fool right now. So now I'm understanding, all right, next time he's not going to be stealing as much. Maybe we need to work on a delay steal or something else because it didn't work out too great.
Well, the 2 pieces of advice that changed the way I saw the game when we were coaching softball was we were playing some really good teams and some really good coaches. And one of them, we were talking about the base paths, and he said, I never teach my kids to run. I teach them to stop. So being aggressive is the way to go in a lot of circumstances. Now, obviously, you have to meter that. But the other one you might get picked off here, you might get picked off there, but the pressure that you're applying to the defense may change the game dramatically. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a catch-22. Yeah, you're going to get kids thrown out and you're going to look a little silly, but if what you're creating is a team that's dynamic at the end of the year, just eat the outs and kids know, hey, I got to be fast. So now at practice, you're practicing being faster. I see how that could benefit you later on in the season.
Yep.
Now, you have a lot of young athletes, and probably not as many that played competition ball as in years past. So you're progressing a young athlete into a spot and building them for the future. How is that going?
It depends on how much they're actually playing in the off season, not just during the season. Because this is the most JV games I think we've had. I don't know, I couldn't tell you how many years. We've had a lot of games. We've had a lot of guys throwing, seeing what they're made of. And I'm trying to give them as many opportunities as possible because I know comp ball can be pretty expensive. So we're seeing what they can do because some of them, they're not going to see any other competition out there. If they play rec league, they're not going to have as many guys that are going to be as good as what we see now. But just making sure that they're prepared, understand expectations, like knowing the game a little bit, because we have some guys that get lost. Like, we got 2 outs, we got to be moving, or we got an out, or we got a fly ball that's out to right field and we're not tagging up, we're going halfway. I'm like, you're on third base, we got to score. So we've had some kids that they just need to work on a little bit of just playing the game. Helps out a lot. I mean, you can only do so much in practice, but when you get involved in a game, you see those game scenarios, it helps out so much more. So just playing as much as possible during the season. As soon as we get done with these 3 games this week, we're going to have another scrimmage. We'll probably have 2 scrimmages next week, just so we have more of that experience and talking through, hey, this is what we should be doing in this scenario. Understand that. So,
yeah, it's kind of like film study with football guys. You got to have that with baseball players too. Sometimes we take it for granted that they just know what they're supposed to be doing, and a lot of them don't. They're just out there flying by the seat of their pants. So I see how some scrimmage games after some games would really open up some possibilities to teach some kids some stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get your nephew in. I'm going to try to get another few guys, just to see different arms, because everyone's seen each other. They know the timing for their pitches. So they need to see someone else and see how they can adapt, change to different people coming in, because we're going to see the best pitchers from here on out after next Monday. So
it's probably not a bad plan. Now, you started really early this year. You got a lot of your touches in well before season began. You were able to take advantage of some weight room stuff. What did you see carry over now from what you were trying to implement then?
I feel like, so some of them, we got a pocket radar, see how fast they were throwing, that day one, see how they'd be progressing. I know we've been a little bit lax on seeing how fast we're throwing. We haven't done that in a while. We'll always have it on me, but I usually don't ever get it out because it's where we position ourselves in the dugout. It's hard to know how fast they're actually throwing. But I think some of them, they might have got like maybe a shade faster. Some of them got maybe a shade slower. So maybe some things that we did in the weight room weren't helping out as much for that. So understanding, hey, maybe we shouldn't go as hard on our upper body or our shoulders on certain days or certain things or certain workouts, and maybe focus more on using our legs, working on more of our fundamentals instead of just throwing as hard as possible. Because some of our guys, they still need fundamental work, and like all the time I'm telling them like, hey, know your feet, know how to use your feet, use your legs, because that's gonna be the most important when it comes to throwing. Because I'll get out there and I'll throw it as far as some of them like, you didn't even stretch or do any of that stuff. I'm like, we gotta use your legs, and some of them still aren't understanding, like, make corrections, make adjustments. If you're not getting it there, what should you do? Maybe use your legs a little bit more, maybe stride out a little bit more. And some of them, they just need to just be told all the time of, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this. It needs to be free private lessons all the time, but with 9 different guys. But then again, we can only get to so many of them. I know maybe we should adjust on who we're looking at each day. Like one day we're looking at this guy, focus on them. Next day work on someone else at the beginning of the season instead of doing it so late. So just thinking about that now, it's probably what we should have done more of.
I think with the different coaches I've been able to talk to lately, I think you're on the right track. Track what you did preseason, see how it's carrying over, and not being afraid to make some changes. The weight room may not always be the answer. You know, it'd be great if it was, but I'll be the first one to admit that sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the last thing they need. But yeah, that sounds like you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I just need to make sure I keep records of everything, take note, because, yeah, go back on all your stuff, see what was working, see what's not, see what you can get rid of, see what's going to help you the most.
I've had some guys in here that went on to college and play sports, and then they come back and got their books out of their locker because they're like, hey, this helped the most. I'm not getting that feeling now. Let me go back and see what I did a year ago. I mean, I think tracking is underestimated in a lot of circumstances. Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say, whether it be professional, personal life, either or, what is your biggest accomplishment?
Biggest accomplishment? I have to think about that one for a little bit. Biggest accomplishment? I mean, I really wouldn't say I have any individual accomplishments. I mean, I feel like that will come in a certain time. Like, as of now, just being able to get back to where I am, be with my family, be in the school setting that I wanted to be at. Because when I went to college, I knew I wanted to come back to Adrian, and be able to have that opportunity. I feel like that's an accomplishment of its own, because not many people ever get that chance to come back here. They got to work at other places, be able to work their way up, and then apply for that position. And I was just able to just get in and be able to be at the school I wanted to right away. So I feel like that's an accomplishment of its own, knowing the staff, and they know how I am and how I was raised, and like what makes things right. They saw that in myself and throughout school. So them knowing me for 13 years really helps out. So I'll say just the biggest accomplishment is just being who I am, and a bigger accomplishment will come later down the road.
Now, one of the cool aspects of your job is you get to teach a conspiracy theory class. Now, some of the more national guests, I never get to get into conspiracy theory because I don't know their viewpoints on stuff, but local guests, that's one of the more fun parts for me. So with what you're teaching now, I mean, it's a wide variety of topics. What's your favorite conspiracy theory at the moment?
Our favorite one that we had in class, like we went over JFK quite a bit of who was involved in the assassination. Like, we have all the records out there and stuff. I mean, we were in that for a long time because that's all the kids talked about the previous semester, because they're like, when are we taking conspiracies class? We want to talk about JFK. CIA did it. I mean, that was one that we talked the most about, but I think the one I like the most, and maybe not like, but have dove the most into just lately, is just 9/11, and like who's all involved in that. Like, we watched Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11. I know the kids were like, why are we watching this? I'm like, well, it's another viewpoint that we might not have seen before. And like all of what he researched and what he explored, and just seeing like all these government officials being involved with like Halliburton and how they had all these materials for the military and they raised all this money, and how Bush was involved with them. I mean, he was putting money, he invested, like all the people that was part of his staff were involved with Halliburton in some manner. And they're saying that he wasn't even experienced to be a president. However, they somehow won him the election and stuff. I know the fraudulent elections, that's always going to be a topic anymore these days. But they're like, they wanted him to get into that position and like possibly get them the most money raised as possible, because that's how any government officials are anymore. I feel like most politicians are pretty corrupt. I mean, they're doing it for finances. Some of them, maybe a few amount of people want to do it for the betterment of the people, and they're doing it more for money, because how can you go into office with a net amount of money that's nowhere close to what they come out with when you're only paid $173,000 a year? How are you coming out and you have $40 million? So I think just the government of its own, because I know I teach government class as well, and like they do a lot of good things, but what actually goes underneath the table, what's actually going on? Because I was just looking at a meme right before I came down here, and it said showed the IRS looking at like Venmo transactions, like, hey, where'd you get all this money from on this Venmo transaction? You make sure you file, make sure you tell us what happened with that. But they get audited for $2.1 trillion, and they're like, oh, we don't know where that money went. Well, why not? We let the people know where that money's going. So government's pretty fishy on a bunch of other stuff of what actually goes on, and I feel like they are involved with a lot of certain different conspiracies out there. I know a lot of people talk about it, and they're saying, oh no, they would never do anything like that. Well, what if it's actually true? That's why that's a conspiracy. Like, you can come with a conspiracy of anything if you get a large enough following for that. So I feel like that JFK, it's got the biggest following because it's all kinds of things that people have researched, dove into, and try to figure out the nooks and crannies of what could possibly happen or anything that happens with it. So they're trying to figure out what actually happened. And of course, all of our guys, they hear it and they want to know more about it too. So they're researching, they're looking it up, but you can only research so much because, I mean, you're going to have thousands of Reddit posts that are out there. They have their conspiracies about certain different topics, but you're just trying to learn more and more about it. And those people that give you all these different viewpoints, these understandings of it, makes you try to sway your interest a little bit. So you never know on them. That's why the class is a lot of fun, because they get to see hey, it could be this. Maybe this is true. Maybe it's not, but we don't know. Like, we're doing extraterrestrials right now. We're just wrapping it up and just saying how there could be something that's bigger out there. There's all this proof that they say, but you never know about it. So
if anything else, it's opening their minds a little bit to there is more than one way that something could be, and not everybody sees stuff the same. But going back into the JFK, I watched one the other day, and I didn't realize it, but after he was assassinated, the Warren Commission kept his brain in case they would need it. Well, then when they went back to look for it, they can't find it.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's buried with him now. They think a family member went and essentially stole it and put it in the casket with him, and that now it's buried. Well, they'll never be able to know because of where he's buried at. But I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't know that had happened.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different stuff with the Warren Commission, and I know there's the magic bullet theory, and they're saying how can it enter out one side, go down, hit the leg, and all that stuff. But then we looked at this one video. This one guy, he's like, well, this certain model of car that they were driving, he was just a little bit higher in the car compared to where the senator, I believe, was. So with the trajectory of it, it could definitely go through all parts of the body. So they canceled that theory. And the kids saw that and were like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then these other stray bullets that happen in all these other places, they're learning more than just, oh, the CIA did it. We watched the JFK film. I know it's not the most appropriate, but for them to learn and see hey, there's Hollywood's actually out there, and they're coming with ideas, and they're seeing like, hey, how could this be involved with other people? So them seeing like all those different aspects of it. And I know with the Warren Commission, like why is there no like evidence of whenever they were interviewing Oswald, like he was shot in the parking lot by Jack Ruby, but how was Jack Ruby able to get in there? They just let him in there. We have the biggest controversial figure like the United States has ever seen with the assassination of the president. So why is there not more security surrounding him? How is this one guy able to get in there and able to shoot the president? I mean, why are they not trying to do more? Why are they taking a different path? Or why are they not having more Secret Service? Because Secret Service was there long before just JFK. Why are they not zoning off all these different buildings? Why are they not doing more to the route that they took? So there's a lot that goes along with it. What's with all this lack of people doing anything with what was happening, especially with the President of the United States visiting in downtown Dallas? Why is there not more happening? Then again, that's something you can question then, but now we understand that we have to ramp it up, make changes so people see that as well. So
I think the Robert Kennedy assassination is almost more interesting than the JFK assassination, but it doesn't get talked about near as much as the JFK does.
And that's the same
especially with Sirhan being alive for so long, But it is what it is.
Yeah, that's same with like MLK too, like his assassination. I mean, his gets a little bit more than Robert Kennedy, but why are they going after the Kennedys? I mean, why is it happening in a hotel, in a back kitchen? I mean, it's a public figure. He's got to have more security as well. So
Malcolm X is another assassination that has a lot of conspiracy theorist ties to it. So, yeah, there's so much to teach in a semester that it's very hard to do. I'm sure all you're trying to do is open their minds up a little bit and let them see what's out there. It's a big world and there's a lot of stuff that happens. So I think it's a pretty interesting class.
Yeah, and they present their findings and see, like we discuss it all together, and then they just present their findings. They do a little bit of their own research, and then like they present it to the class. So it's pretty interesting of what more they can explore. And some of them like really dive into it. They go all out whenever they do it. So it's pretty neat.
We'll move off that, and I'll ask you, who would you consider your hero?
Well, I remember, so every time I've been asked this a few times, but I remember like we had an all-star game for baseball, like in probably 5th grade or something like that. So my answer then is a lot different from what it is now, because in 2008 it was Zach Greinke, the Cy Young Award winner. So I put that down on a piece of paper. I always thought that was pretty funny, because that was like my first answer for like who's my hero and stuff. I would just say, I'm not going to say my mom or my dad, it's just both my parents, how they raised us. They put us in the right community. They did a lot for us all growing up. They made sure that we had all the essentials, made sure that we were able to do all the things that we wanted to do, and they made sure that we were pretty disciplined, and they made, like, we got our butts whooped quite a bit. But now that I see that now, more kids need that. Why is this not happening more? I understand, like, some people are like, oh, you can't treat your kids like that. Well, they need it. It's what they need, and I'm glad that they show me that's what I needed, my brothers and I, and like it's helped reflect and made me the person I am today. So
yeah, that seems to be maybe an issue across all of society, is discipline. I don't know, you're never going to get two people to agree on that. Everybody's going to have a different stance, but I get it. So
very true.
Moving back to the kids a little bit, how do you keep kids engaged, either in the classroom or on the baseball field? There's so many things pulling at them, taking their interests away. It's we've almost had the mind developed where it can only focus for a couple minutes at a time before it's gone off to something else. So how do you find a way to navigate that?
In the classroom, I feel like that's a little bit more difficult compared to being out on the field, because those kids are out on the field. I say most of them want to be there. They want to get better. So, like, most of them are going to be engaged quite a bit. Some of them are going to do something else at certain times, but that's just kids being kids. I was there too. I did the same thing. So I just let them know that, hey, I was in your shoes at one time. Wasn't that long ago, and I know how you guys are going to act. So baseball, football, that's a lot easier, because you're going to have most of the kids are there for a reason. Now, for the classroom, it's a lot more difficult because a lot of kids are like, I have to be here. Like, I can't do anything about this. My parents are making me. I have to get a degree, or I want to drop out. And I made sure, like, hey, that is the worst thing you could possibly ever do. Don't do that. So I try to treat them all about the same. I make sure to, what I need to change is just how I implement lessons and how I can make them just different from time to time. Because I know sitting in the chair and taking notes, kids are going to hate that. So we try to do something that's a little bit more engaging here and there, just to make sure that they're all understanding, paying attention, and like it all comes down to the first day of how your classroom's gonna be set up, your classroom management. So like the first day, I'm telling them, hey, honesty, be honest, be respectful, make sure you have eye contact all the time, and I feel like they still do that all the time. So like the engaging part just in the classroom is, I just want them to be respectful in the classroom. If they're being respectful, they're paying attention, and I'm going to treat them how I want to be treated, the same way as how I'm going to treat them. So most of them do that to an extent. And sometimes I just got to change a few kids. Just some kids need a little bit more of a push in the back, or just need a little bit more help. Just get messed around a little bit more on, and that helps them out. Just making sure that you're always checking on kids, not just at one time, but all the time.
Right, because you don't want to be a babysitter, and you don't want kids to feel like they're being babysat. So finding that line where everybody can be engaged and moving the classroom forward, I would imagine that's got to be a key component in being a successful teacher.
Yeah, and we're not paid enough to be babysitters. So, like, if I was a babysitter, I'd be getting paid a lot more than what I'm doing teaching the kids in the classroom. So I make sure to tell them that all the time. Like, hey, do I need to hold your hand? Do I need to do this and that? And they hate hearing that. So then they stop whatever they're usually doing.
All right, so moving back to baseball a little bit, I noticed as I've watched this year, I haven't made it to as many games as I wanted, but with kids coming in the gym, I try to make sure I'm getting out there and watching. It looks to me like you're getting a lot of rotation in. Have you seen any carryover with the way that affects the players? I mean, are you seeing more players engaged because they know there actually is an opportunity for them to see the field?
I mean, we went to the season and we were looking for different position groups. Like, we had a lot of need in certain areas. I mean, we were losing a lot of our team from last year, like our 4 biggest bats, our best bats, we all lost from last year. So we needed to find that. We need to see guys that can make plays, make stuff happen. So that's just what we've been seeing. We've been experimenting. That's why we have a lot of JV games. We keep all the stats for JV games. So we're seeing, hey, who's doing the right things and who's going to be able to do that in the varsity game. So I've tried to give as many opportunities as possible. And if someone's doing well with it, I mean, I'm going to keep them in there until they can't anymore. And if one guy's improving a lot in the JV level, we're going to see how they can do it in varsity level. So we did that over the weekend. And then we saw, okay, we need to make different adjustments, and we're going to give another kid a shot come next week, because when it matters is when it comes that districts in 2 weeks. We want to see who's going to do the best then, and we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, by giving multiple players multiple chances, it definitely creates an environment where everybody should be going their hardest, because at any time they could earn a chance to prove themselves on the varsity level. Now, what would you find is your biggest obstacle?
It's just, I think it's more of attitudes. Like, some of them, like, that was our big thing on just yesterday, just attitudes. Like, whenever our body language is going downhill, we're not going to be playing to our expectations. And we've already lost whenever our body language, our attitude is gone. That's how it was when we played Wobble over the weekend. Like, we were up 3-0 the entire game, and then we make like one error, and then body language starts happening. Not just from them, but everybody else. And that's one thing I told like some of our key guys. I'm like, hey, our body language is going to show how we're going to play. And whenever our body language, we're doing this, throwing our hands up, getting ticked off about certain things, that loses games. And it showed over the weekend, because we've had multiple games. Like, all the games that we've lost, like, our umpires have not been great in those games. but our attitudes have been even worse than what the umpires are. So as soon as our kids start doing that, it just ruins us. So we're having a team meeting tomorrow, or they're having a player-only meeting so they can talk about their attitudes and their expectations of, hey, we can't continue to do this crap, because it drives Coach and I crazy when we see them doing all this stuff, because it's not helping us. That's why we lose those games, because we're just playing like crap. I mean, it just reflects of how we play. Just attitude is our biggest thing, and trying to correct that. So hopefully tomorrow they can correct that within their own means, because I can only yell on them so much, and they're not. We'll see how they reflect on getting yelled at, but it didn't do so hot the next game that we played. So
yeah, player-led culture will get you probably a lot further than you and your assistant just yelling at them all the time.
Yeah.
Before too long, all you turn into is just a mouth that's moving. So with the players leading it, maybe you can shore some things up heading into this last part of the season.
Yeah, that's how it was whenever I was in school. Like, we got yelled at quite a bit, and like sometimes we'd play a lot better, sometimes we'd play even worse. So I'll make sure not to do that as much, because we were playing Windsor, and they had multiple errors. Our coach came out there and just started dropping F-bombs, cursing at them and stuff, and they played even worse after that. I was like, I do not want to get to that point. I was like, sometimes you need it, maybe not right in the middle of a game, an important game, but I feel like they need to correct themselves and do it on their own means, because we can only do so much, so they need to figure it out. Because if you have someone else that's telling you, that's a teammate, you're going to listen to them probably a little bit more than just your coach yelling at you. So
now, getting into that a little bit, you're a fairly reserved guy. How would you describe yourself to somebody that just showed up to a game, watched you coach? I mean, you're not going to say much, you don't have much annex. How would you describe yourself to somebody that didn't know you?
I would say I'm more of an anxious person. I mean, I'm gonna be quiet when it's needed. I mean, I want to wait and see what happens. I know, like, at the beginning of the game, I'm not gonna say much, because our kids should know what they're doing. Like, when you watch any game of baseball that's not high school level or little league level, the coaches rarely say anything. I mean, players are out there, they're playing, and coaches will talk when they need to be talking. Like, we have like our team meeting before, but all I say is like, hey, let's put the ball in play, let's win the inning. Okay, the only stuff that you'll hear is just more of a winning attitude, is because that's our biggest thing, is our attitude. So trying to encourage a positive attitude, a winning attitude, because when we're down and it's bad. But whenever we're playing good and we have a positive attitude, we're playing great, we're playing what we need to do. So I'm just more, I would say, anxious, see how the game goes, and then I'll speak up when it needs to happen, and then we'll progress from there. And most of the time, the players are well ready. They're ready to go when the time comes, and only I need to help out the ones that need that help. Because some of the kids, they've played a lot of baseball. They don't need to hear the same thing over and over. They can make their own corrections. And then the other ones, they need a little bit more, so we'll talk to them just a little bit more and let them know all about it.
Now, we'll kind of start wrapping it up, but my biggest question would be, is you're with them all day long, and then you have to go to the baseball field and be with them longer. How do you separate the classroom from the baseball field?
I just make it a little bit more outgoing when we're out there. I want them to all get along. No, I'm not going to be an a-hole to them. Like, of course, if I need to, that will happen. But I make sure to just be more open to them, because I'm going to crack a little bit more jokes when I'm out there and not around certain students in the classroom, because sometimes they need to hear it. They need to have a little bit of fun. So I just try to make it enjoyable for them, try to make memories with one another, because I know we had a lot of fun when we played, even though it was pretty strict. But I just want to make sure that they're making those memories, having a lot of fun, and just trying to get the most out of it.
Well, I know it's been a fun season to watch. We've watched a lot of young players start to develop. I think the changes you've made and the changes you're going to make in the future are going to be really successful for you. So where do you see the program in 5 years?
So the thing about high school baseball is, like, you just have to, sometimes you have a lot of kids that work hard. Like, I know most kids that we're going to have at Adrian, they're going to work hard. They're going to put the effort into it. Just in 5 years, I mean, we'll have to see our numbers, see, like, I try to encourage all kids to play 3 sports. I was a 3-sport guy. And if they're not playing 3 sports, they need to be doing something all the time. Because when you're sitting around not doing anything, you're not making yourself, you're not making the team better. So we'll have to see how many of those guys that we have. But Coach and I, or whoever we have, we're going to try to help them out the most. In the beginning, in the off season, right before, like I'll never probably be coaching a winter sport. So in that winter off season, we're going to do as much as possible so they're well prepared for the season. Because swinging the bat 100 times is not going to change. You need to swing it 1,000 times if you want to make any improvements. Same with throwing the ball. So we'll see who our numbers that we have, the kids that we have, the attitudes that we have. Because if we get more guys that have the better attitudes, it's going to reflect our game, because we've usually had a winning culture with our baseball program and just want to continue that. So I see it going, I would say it's going to continue to go up. So,
well, good luck on the rest of the season. I appreciate you making some time to come out. Sometimes it's hard to get stuff scheduled, but it's always great to have local coaches come in that are making some changes and seeing some success. So I appreciate you making some time, and have a great rest of the season.
Appreciate it.